the world, we see manufacturers face challenges from supply chain disruptions to difficulties sourcing raw materials. And we wanted to address how ERP solutions from NetSuite can overcome these challenges and do much more. Hi, I'm Michelle from ERP Buddies, and welcome to a new episode of Now That's Suite, where we discuss ERP solutions for industry challenges globally with NetSuite. Joining me today is our NetSuite extraordinaire, the practice director at ERP Buddies, Richard Dipp. Hi, Richard. How's it going today?
Perfect. I'm happy to kind of join the conversation today.
I'm happy to have you here. So for the people just joining us, could you please share a little bit about your role as practice director for NetSuite?
Sure. As a NetSuite practice director here at ERP Buddies, I provide high-level oversight for all the implementation and support projects that we have going on. Really managing both the functional side, so the supply chain management, warehouse management, manufacturing, and looking over the technical side as well. So all the customizations we're doing, the suite apps, the custom bundles we're building, and also just driving sales, looking to drive sales and build partners with other areas of NetSuite.
Awesome. Here at ERP Buddies, I can tell you guys from personal experience, Richard is the go-to guy for all things NetSuite. Now, let's get into the actual manufacturing challenges we're here to discuss.
Let's do it.
We're actually going to start with a fun challenge. I'm going to do some icebreakers where you have 60 seconds on the clock to give quick solutions to some common manufacturing problems. You got this?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's go. So number one, how would you solve item defects?
Item defects, there's quality assurance. You might want to do scheduling, rework, or scrap. There's also just physical inspections that you can do as part of the quality assurance bundle. So those are some things you can take care of.
Perfect, right on time. How about insufficient budget?
If there's insufficient budget, there's a way to do it in NetSuite. It's called Cash 360 for manufacturers. So there's a functionality there to take care of that.
Perfect, going 2 for 2. How about late shipments?
Yeah, so for late shipments, you can use some analytics in NetSuite to track shipments, expected ship dates, expected arrival dates. And again, there's reporting in NetSuite you can build to really monitor that. And I'll just add on top of that, with the help of shipping integrations, it'll actually kind of give you some more insight.
Okay, perfect. That was a close 60 seconds. How about poor vendor relationships?
Poor vendor relationships really come from a communication gap. So I always opt with our clients, partners, and vendors to use the vendor or partner center in NetSuite. So it'll allow them to log into their NetSuite account and it can show them all the related transactions. Now, off of that, there's just, again, reporting in NetSuite that you can automate, you can schedule out from the purchasing or receiving side. So you can send that out as well.
Okay, made it just in time. And last one, expired raw materials.
For expired raw materials, there is a Fifo strategy. So that's FEFO. So that's first expired, first out. And that's the one where you, when you're receiving and you're stocking, you're really tracking the expiry date and you're looking to use that first over ones that may have come first and might expire a lot later. Mm-hmm. So you can better mitigate kind of wastage there.
Okay, perfect. You did that flawlessly. And that was it for the rapid fire round. But are you ready for complex questions?
I'm ready for it, yes.
Okay, let's go into it. So my first question has to do with financial challenges.
Okay.
We know that inflation affects the cost of raw materials, and that's a huge challenge for manufacturers. So what key strategies can these manufacturers employ on NetSuite to resolve this?
Okay. So the first one is using MRP, so that's material resource planning, to better plan the purchases that you're going to use for the work orders that you're going to have down the road. People that have higher volume production, they'll look to purchase a bit more raw materials and packaging, so you can better plan out exactly what you need to purchase. The second piece there is inventory stock levels. So you can set up NetSuite to determine what your minimum stock quantities are. So if it just drops below that, you can purchase a minimum amount to bring it back to the stock level. This prevents you from buying too much at once or too little at once. So you buy really just enough to keep the inventory at your warehouses stocked at a good quantity. The other piece is alternative BOMs is a great solution that we have, which really entails if there's a bill of material that has, let's say, 3 components, and that third component can use an alternate item, we can set up NetSuite to determine when that alternate item actually gets cheaper than the primary item. So when that happens, you can actually use that alternative BOM, still build out the same finished product, and save money where things get increased.
Wow, that's very impressive.
Yeah.
So for my next question, we all know that implementing a new ERP during company's production period has risks. So how can an implementation be seamlessly integrated without disrupting any business operations?
Well, there's no way to ever avoid disruptions to the business because you're moving from a legacy system to NetSuite. So it's how do you mitigate those risks? There are 2 things you need to factor in. The first one is your fiscal calendar and when that starts. That's really for the accounting team to decide if you guys want to do it at the beginning of their fiscal year or kind of in the middle, and you're going to have to reconcile two kinds of books. So when you figure that out, the second piece is your production planning. So when you're thinking of production planning, it's, do you understand the business enough to know where higher volume production happens? Is it going to happen in the summer? Is it going to happen in the winter? Is it going to happen in a specific month? Those are things that you need to decide. Those are actually the areas you want to avoid when you're deciding a go live date. So to really mitigate any slowdowns or disruptions to the business. The other piece there I would like to add is parallel activities is a great way to do mirroring of 2 systems. So at the time of cutover, we actually do what's called a parallel run, which is running 1 month of production runs in the legacy system, and again doing another run in NetSuite at the same time. Now, what this tells you is how well NetSuite is mirroring the production run in NetSuite, and then you can really see if it's been set up correctly, right?
I see. Okay. Yeah. I think as a manager, I would feel very confident to know that everybody's is so thorough with their risk management strategy.
Absolutely. There's a lot of things you have to, a lot of moving pieces for NetSuite. And these are just a few things you have to look at, right?
Yeah. Perfect. So for my next question, when it comes to NetSuite, manufacturers have 2 options. They have a choice between choosing the SuiteSuccess manufacturing solution or the NetSuite Advanced Manufacturing Solution. What are the biggest differences between them, and how should companies choose between those 2?
So SuiteSuccess, any SuiteSuccess implementation, you need to think of that as a canned implementation. And when I say canned, I mean it's like a template that they understand the industry and the vertical, and they kind of more or less seamlessly bring it into NetSuite based off of certain questions that they ask, and they'll kind of check boxes and they'll move it as best they can into NetSuite. Now, where advanced manufacturing comes into play is if you use any type of capacity planning, finite scheduling, tracking downtime, and using any type of tablets for scanning. These are some things immediately you need to start thinking that's not SuiteSuccess, and it's advanced manufacturing. Now, what advanced manufacturing also has is the ability to print travelers. And what a traveler is it's considered like a matrix almost. It tells you a step-by-step instruction on how to build things. And this is why it's great, because if you're constantly adding new product or constantly making changes to product, you don't want to have to update the team on the floor on how things are done. They just have to kind of print a page and they have something updated, right? So NetSuite actually provides all that. So wherever you're trying to track downtime, not track downtime, but increase time for efficiencies, and basically, if any of those functionalities that I did bring up are ones that your business is going to need, then you need to start thinking about advanced manufacturing.
Okay, yeah. So from what I'm getting, it depends on the company's requirements.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. And it sounds like NetSuite is a fully scalable system.
It is absolutely scalable, and it really comes from that phase 1 initiation phase where we, do a deep dive on your business, understand the process. Probably a different conversation altogether, but there's a lot to dive in there.
Okay, maybe in the next webinar.
Yeah.
Okay, so for my next question, we know we can't change the rising cost of raw materials. So how can NetSuite help manufacturers become more responsible?
So that's good. So using cost of goods sold and the reporting outside of NetSuite, you can actually really track your projected and your actuals as far as how much you're looking to spend on your raw materials and packaging, or really any of the components that really tie up to a finished good or semi-finished good. So that really allows you to monitor the inflationary costs as you're going from a kind of a month to month or quarter to quarter, and it tells you how the prices are fluctuating. And now why that's important is because once you see your P&L or your profit and loss kind of start kind of going a bit lower, it's really coming from those deflationary costs that we talked about, right? So how do you, kind of going back to alternative bill of materials, how do you kind of go back to alternative ways to keep the pricing the same for your customers, but still minimizing the cost that you're spending on the goods?
Okay,
right?
Perfect. Sounds like NetSuite can definitely keep up with the changing times.
Absolutely, yeah.
Next question. Earlier in the icebreaker, we touched on vendor relationships and how to resolve those. But let's get really deep into that. How can NetSuite actually improve vendor relationships?
Yeah, so there's, again, I say that vendor relationships really come from a communication gap. NetSuite does a really great job on kind of closing that gap through automation. When I say automation, how can we schedule or automate reports or notifications out of NetSuite to let your vendors know certain things are happening, right? For example, when we create a purchase order, as a client, you're creating a purchase order to a vendor. How do we notify the customer, right? So we see from people with legacy systems when they create a purchase order, sometimes they'll create it in as an email. Maybe they'll fill out a form. Then they'll have to manually email their vendor, and hopefully it's the same person that they keep doing. So even if there's a change from the vendor side, NetSuite's not really their legacy system's not really capturing that. But in NetSuite, you can set everything up to out of the box functionality, I must say. But when you're creating these records, purchase order records, it can automatically send out to the vendor. They can receive notifications. They can respond to you back. And there are reports that we've built out in the past. I mean, they're generally simple reports, but a totaling of all purchase orders or all vendor bills, anything related to the vendor record, that we can send out to the vendors so they can see a compilation of all the records that they have with the business. Now, off the heel of that, it really is the vendor and partner center that we ask their vendors to leverage. And what that really has for them is they can log into the NetSuite account, log into the client's NetSuite account, and see all the related transactions. There's ways to communicate back to the clients themselves. Again, as well as just a full-fledged reporting of everything that they're involved with the business, right? So, so giving them the ability to do that really minimizes any back and forth. I don't have to email you to ask how things are going with so-and-so orders. You can log in, you can see that items have been shipped, items have been received. You can really set everything up like that, right? So
the visibility would be actually very useful.
Absolutely transparent. And I think where NetSuite is robust is offering that automation, right?
Yes.
The capacity to do so. Yeah.
Sounds wonderful. So now for my final question, could you dive deeper into how exactly the FIFO strategy you talked about earlier helps production planners and managers in manufacturing?
Yeah, so FIFO, I know it generally gets mixed up with first in, first out, but it's actually FIFO, FIFO. And that's first expired, first out. And I kind of talked about it. When you're receiving items, just to explain the concept, when you're receiving items, you may receive items at different times, and they'll have different expiry dates. You don't always want to use the one that you're receiving first, because they have a different expiry date, and it would cause wastage down the road if you're not using it in time. So the FIFO strategy in NetSuite allows you to, when you're planning out your work orders, it actually tells you which items to select first based off of a first expired, first out approach. And again, I don't want to get too in the weeds, but if it's going to expire first, you want to use it first, right? And again, that mitigates wastage. It allows you to better track and maintain your inventory stock levels without really wasting any product. It really ties back to the food and beverage industries and healthcare as well. Anywhere where you're tracking expired goods and they're considered like lot numbered inventory items, right? So those are those are the verticals that we target, and we really push them to use the first expired, first out method.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense why food and beverage manufacturers would love this strategy.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and that wraps up another episode of Buddies TV. I just wanted to thank Richard for joining us today and making it so easy to understand the ins and outs of NetSuite.
Absolutely. I hope it was easy to understand.
Oh, no,
NetSuite can be very fun.
Yeah.
and funky, yeah.
Yeah, it was today.
Yeah.
If you want us to cover any of the other industry solutions, please let us know in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe, and let us know how we did. See you next time.